I'm gonna be reading Pride and Prejudice, Chapter A. Yeah, let's start. At 5 o'clock, the two ladies retired to dress, and at 6:30, Elizabeth was summoned to dinner. To the civil inquiries, which then poured in, and among which she had the pleasure of distinguishing the much superior solitude no solicitude of Mr. Bentley's, she could not make a very favourable answer. Jane's was by no means better. The sisters, on hearing this, repeated 3 or 4 times how much they were grieved, how shocking it was to have a bad cold, and how excessively they disliked being ill themselves, and then thought no more of the matter. Their indifference towards Jane, when now immediately before them, restored Elizabeth to the enjoyment of all her original dislike. Their brother, indeed, was the only one of the party whom she could regard with any complicity. His anxiety for Jane was evident, and his attention to herself most pleasing, and it prevented her from feeling herself so much an intruder as she believed she was considered by the others. She had very little notice from any but him. Miss Bentley was engrossed by Mr. Darcy, her sister scarcely less so, and as for Miss Hurt, by whom Elizabeth sat, he was an indolent man who lived only to eat, drink, and play at cards, who, when he found her prefer a plain dish to regale, he had nothing to say to her. When dinner was over, she returned directly to Jane, and Miss Bentley began abusing her as soon as she was out of the room. Her manners were pronounced to be very bad indeed, a mixture of pride and impertinence. Let me look up the word.
Impertinence. Impertinence.
Impertinence. Okay, impertinence. Okay, her manner were pronounced to be very bad indeed, a mixture of pride and impertinence. Oh, rude. Oh my goodness. She had no conversation, no style, no taste, no beauty. Miss Hurst thought the same, and added, she has nothing, in short, to recommend her but being an excellent walker. I shall never forget her appearance this morning. She really looked almost wild. She did indeed, Louisa. I could hardly keep my countenance. very nonsensical to come at all. Very nonsensical to come at all. We must. She becoming scampery about the country because her sister had a cold. Her hair so untidy, so blowsy. Yes, and her petticoats. I hope you saw her petticoats. 6 inches deep in mud. I am absolutely certain. And the gown, which had been let down to hide it, not doing its office. Your picture may be very exact, Louisa, said Bentley, but this was all lost upon me. I thought Miss Elizabeth Bennet looked remarkably well when she came into the room this morning. Her dirty petticoats quite escaped my notice. You observed it, Mr. Darcy, I am sure, said Miss Bentley, and I am inclined to think that you would not wish to see your sister make such an exhibition. Certainly not. To walk 3 miles or 4 miles or 5 miles or whatever it is above her ankles in dirt and alone, quite alone. What could she mean by that? It seemed to me to screw an abominable sort of considered independent and most country town indifference to decorum. It shrews an affection for her sister, which is very pleasing, said Bentley. I am afraid, Mr. Darcy, observed Miss Denley in half whisper, that this adventure has rather affected your admiration of her fine eyes. Not at all, he replied. They were brightened by the exercise. A short pause followed this speech, and Mrs. Hurst began again. I have an excessive regard for Jane Bennet. She is really a very sweet girl, and I wish with all my heart she were well settled. But with such a father and mother, and such low connection, I am afraid there is no chance of it. I think I have heard you say that their uncle is an attorney in Meryton. Yeah, they have another who lives somewhere near Cheapside. That is capital, added her sister, and they both laughed heartily. If they had uncles enough to fill all Cheapside, said Bentley, it would not make them one dot less agreeable. But it must very materially lessen their chance of marrying men of any consideration in the world, replied Darcy. To this speech, Bentley made no answer, but his sisters gave their hearty assent, and indulged their merit for some time at the expense of their dear friend's volar relations. With a renewal of tenderness, however, they repaired to her room on leaving dining parlour, and sat with her till summoned to coffee. She was still very poorly, and Elizabeth would not quit her at all till late in the evening. When she had the comfort of seeing her asleep, and it appeared to her rather that pleasant that she would go down the steps, got down steps herself. On entering the drawing room, she found the whole party at loo. She was immediately invited to join them, and suspecting them to be playing high, she declined it, making her sister the excuse. Said she would amuse herself for the short time she could stay below with a book. Mr. Hurst looked at her with astonishment. "Do you prefer reading to card?" said he. "That is rather singular. Miss Ben Elizabeth, sorry, Miss Elizabeth, no, so no way. Miss Eliza Bennet," said Miss Bailey, "despises cards. She is a great reader and has no pleasure in anything else." "I deserve neither such praise nor censure," said Elizabeth. "I am not a great reader, and I have pleasure in many things. In nursing your sister, I'm sure you have pleasure," said Bentley, "and I hope it will soon be increased by seeing her quite well." Elizabeth thanked him from her heart and walked towards the table where a few books were lying. He immediately offered to fetch her others, all that his library afforded. "And I wish my collection were larger for your benefit and my own credit. But I'm an idle fellow. But I'm an idle fellow, and though I have not many, I have more than I ever look into." Elizabeth assured him that she could suit herself perfectly with those in the room. Sorry. Flip. Okay, flip. Okay, there you go. Okay, let me pull this right here. Okay, let's continue. "I am astonished," said Miss Bailey, "that my father should have left so small a collection of books. What a delightful library you have at Pemberley, Mr. Darcy." "It ought to be good," he replied. "It has been the work of many generations. And then you have added so much to it yourself. You are always buying books. I cannot comprehend the neglect of a family library in such days as these." "Neglect! I'm sure you neglect nothing that can add to the beauties of the noble palace. Charles, when you build your house, I wish it may be half as delightful as Pemberley. Pemberley. I wish it may. But I really advise you to make your purchase in the neighborhood and take Pemberley for a kind of model. There is not a finer county in England than Derbyshire. With all my heart, I will buy Pemberley itself if Darcy would sell it. I'm talking of possibility, Charles. Upon my word, Caroline, I should think it more possible to get Pemberley by purchase than by imagination. Elizabeth was so much caught by what passed as to leave her with very attention for her books, and soon laying it wholly aside. She drew near card table and stationed herself between Mr. Bentley and his elder daughter to observe the game. "Is Miss Darcy much grown since the spring?" said Miss Bentley. "Would she be as tall as I am?" "I think she will. She's now about Miss Elizabeth Bennet's height, or rather taller." "How long to see her again?" I would met with I never met with anybody who delighted me so much, with such a content, such manner, and so extremely accomplished for her age. Her performance on piano forte is exquisite. It is amazing to me," said Bentley, "how young ladies can have patience to be very accomplished, as they all are." "All young ladies accomplished? My dear Charles, what do you mean?" "Yes, all of them, I think. They all paint tables, cover screens, and net purses. I scarcely know any one of them who cannot do all this. And I'm sure I never heard a young lady spoken of for the first time without being informed that she is very accomplished. Your list of common extent of accomplishments," said Darcy, "has too much truth. The word is applied to many a woman who deserves it no other than by knitting a purse or covering a screen, screen. But I am very far from agreeing with you in your estimation of ladies in general. I cannot boast of knowing more than half a dozen in a whole range of acquaintance that are really accomplished. None, I am sure," said Bentley. "Then," observed Lizzie, "you must comprehend a great deal in your idea of an accomplished woman." "Yes, I do comprehend a great deal." "Oh, certainly," cried his faithful servant. "No one can be really esteemed accomplished who does not greatly surpass what is usually met with. A woman must have a thorough knowledge of music, singing, drawing, dancing, and modern language to deserve the word. Besides all this, you must possess a certain something in her she must possess a certain something in her air and manner of walking, the tone of her voice, her address and expressions or word would be and have deserved. All this she must possess," added Darcy, "and to all this she must yet add something more substantial in the improvement of her mind by excessive reading." I am no longer surprised at knowing only 6 accomplished women. I'd rather wonder now at your knowing any. Are you so severe upon your own sex, or as to doubt the possibility of all of this? I never saw such women. I never saw such capacity and taste and application and elegance as you describe united. Miss Hurst and Miss Bentley, Mrs. Hurst and Miss Bentley both cried out against the injustice of her implied doubt, and were both protesting that they knew many women who answered this description, and when Mr. Hertz called them to order with bitter complaints of their inattention to who was going forward, as all conversation was thereby an end, Elizabeth soon after all left the room. Eliza Bennet said Miss Bentley when the door was closed. On here is one of those young ladies who seek to recommend themselves to the other sex by undervaluing their own, and with many men. I dare say it succeeds, but in my opinion it's paltry um device, a very mean art. Undeniably, replied Darcy, to whom this remark was chiefly addressed. There is meanness in all the acts which ladies sometimes consent to employed for cultivation, whatever bears affinity to cunning is despicable. Miss Bentley was not so entirely satisfied with this reply as continued the subject. Elizabeth joined them again, only to say that her sister was worse, and that she could not leave her. Bentley urged Mr. John's being sent for immediately, while his sister, convinced that no country advice could be of service, recommended to an express to town for one of the most eminent physicians. This she would not hear of, but she was not so unwilling to comply with their brother's proposal. It was settled that Mr. Jones should be sent for early in the morning, if Miss Bennet were not decidedly better. Bentley was quite uncomfortable. His sister declared that they were miserable. They sullied their wretchedness, however, by duets after supper, while they could find no better relief to his feelings than by giving his housekeeper directions that every possible attention might be paid to the sick lady and her sister. Okay. Guys, I'm about to read the next chapter. Chapter 9, right? Chapter 9. I'm reading. Should I read chapter 9? Actually, I'll read it tomorrow. Yeah, I'll read it tomorrow. Yep, I'm done. I think I'm doing well. I'll just keep reading till I'm done reading the book. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I'll be back, tomorrow reading. Yeah. I think I did well. Yeah. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.